Hi and welcome. You're listening to Historic Huguenot Street's weekly program on WFNP The Edge, where we discuss regional New Paltz history and upcoming programming and events. I'm Kaitlin Gallucci, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Historic Huguenot Street, which is a nonprofit 10-acre National Historic Landmark District dedicated to preserving historic buildings, artifacts, and manuscripts, and promoting the stories of the Huguenot Street families who founded New Paltz. If you missed our show a couple weeks ago with School Programming Coordinator Jen Bruntill, you can listen to it anytime on Historic Huguenot Street's YouTube channel. And speaking of our YouTube channel, I wanted to mention we were going to do a show last month in honor of Black History Month, but unfortunately that was scheduled for the day of the snowstorm we had. However, you can see our Black History Month lecture on our YouTube channel. Entitled American Irony, that event featured local historian and archivist Eric Roth describing the history of slavery, specifically in New Paltz. It also featured Newport, Rhode Island historian Keith Stokes discussing the Newport African community's rapid evolution from enslaved to free. Both Eric and Keith also discussed how these colonies' practices of slavery conflicted with or at times was justified by their desire for religious freedom. It was an incredibly fascinating talk, so I highly recommend checking that out on our YouTube channel. You could just go to YouTube and search for Historic Huguenot Street. And just to clarify, that of course isn't the only opportunity you get to learn about African history on Huguenot Street. We discuss the enslaved experience on all of our regular tours and are planning some special programming this year for Juneteenth to honor African culture, music, and cuisine, so keep an eye out for more information on that. Now, somehow, it's already March, and that means it's now Women's History Month. And in fact, this year marks 100 years since New York State signed women's suffrage into law, 3 years before the United States passed the 19th Amendment. I think on our previous shows, we had mentioned that this Saturday we would be hosting a performance by historical balladeer Linda Russell called A History of American Women in Song. That event unfortunately needs to be rescheduled, mostly due to the low temperatures expected on Saturday, but we'll keep you updated on that as well. However, our curatorial department is still planning a special exhibit on the untold stories of some historic Hudson Valley women. And joining me now to discuss that is Collections Manager Ashley Trainor. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Kaitlin.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. Happy Women's History Month.
Oh, you too.
So we're going to discuss some interesting women from our region's history that were involved in the arts. So first, why don't we talk about Eliza Ransom Dubois or Du Bois?
Du Bois. I think they probably said Du Bois.
Okay, they probably did. I know there's always a preference, and I change my pronunciation based on like when I talk to Jen, I say Du Bois.
Oh yeah, people
because that's her preference.
One of my interns is French, and she was like, "Oh, you sound unintelligent." Well,
I know. Well, I grew up saying Dubois. That's why it's such a thing to me. Yeah.
Well, before I talk about her, I'm just going to talk about the Women of Note exhibit that we
that would be great
for her. So the Ulster County Historical Society and the Ellenville Library and Museum, I think that's what their title is, got together last year or end of 2015 and decided that with the centennial of women getting the vote in New York, which is 2017, to do this traveling panel photo exhibit and ask societies and libraries to contribute to that.
Cool.
So we were asked to, and with the help of Sandy Levy, who's been here forever, so knows some of the ladies, and our archivist librarian, Carrie Almendinger, I was able to pick 2 women and write little bios on them. So those panels are currently traveling throughout Ulster County. They're right now at the Ellenville Public Library. It opened at the Person House in Kingston. So we chose Eliza Ransom Du Bois, we'll call her. So she was born in 1803 in New Paltz. She made a name for herself as a school teacher at the Kettleborough School, which we were debating this yesterday. I think it's Gardner, but also sometimes New Paltz.
Sure.
weird lines.
They're close enough. Yeah.
So she was one of the first female teachers of her generation, and she played a role in the governance of the school, which could be seen on the school board minutes on HRBH. We actually have those digitized.
Oh, cool.
According to one of the New Paltz historians, Ralph Lefevre, who's not always cited, but his book is really interesting, Eliza was a lady of great tact and was greatly liked by the children and the parents. So she taught arithmetic and geography, but the arts part of it, she's most remembered for her embroidery. So she taught the way that girls would learn arithmetic and writing were by sewing, of course. So she trained girls at the Kettleboro School to sew samplers. A lot of her samplers that were made under her actually have her initials. We don't have one in our collection, but Sandy Levy has one in his personal collection.
Cool.
So yeah, she was one of the first, women to be teaching, to have the fact that she had a voice on the school board is pretty revolutionary for the time.
So impressive.
She married Henry Du Bois in 1837 at the Reformed Church in New Paltz.
Oh, okay, right here on Huguenot Street.
Yeah, so she's really Ulster County, New Paltz. Her husband was born to Ulster County, in Ulster County as well, to Garrett Du Bois and Maria Elting, very much descendants of the street. But they moved and stayed in Ross County in Ohio, which is really interesting. A lot of the Huguenots went to Ohio.
That is interesting.
It's really strange. But her grandfather was one of the people to sign the New Paltz Articles of Association. His name was Peleg Ransom. And he, or her great-grandfather, I think it was her grandfather, he was born in Plymouth County, Massachusetts, and then moved here because he married a woman from New Paltz. So, yeah, she's a New Paltz born descendant.
Yeah, lots of connections.
Her husband was a descendant. She is, and there's a photograph of her on our HRBH collection page. So
cool.
See that there. So that's her.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how about I think this is the second woman that you also contributed to the Women of Note exhibit.
Yeah.
Ruth Linda Deo.
So Ruth Linda Deo is wild.
I was gonna say I read a little bit of her bio and it sounds very interesting.
She's crazy. So if anybody keeps up with our Object of the Week blog, my intern Emily Finan is actually writing an Object of the Week on her.
Cool. For
this week, it'll be posted next week probably. So Ruth Linda Deo is a little later. She was born in 1888 in Poughkeepsie. But her aunt actually lived in the fort. Her aunt was named Gertrude.
Oh.
And the reason that we have stuff of hers is because we have postcards and Christmas cards that she wrote from Egypt, which I'll get to her aunt who lived in the fort, her aunt Gertrude. Okay, so she became a world-renowned concert pianist. Which is really interesting.
That seems unique.
At the age of 9, she performed her own published works in the Assembly Hall of the Women's Building at the 1893 World Columbian Exposition in Chicago.
Wow.
She studied under these crazy people. I don't know if anybody is a music historian, but under William Mason and Edward McDowell in New York. She moved to Europe at 18 after, graduating high school to study music further. And then in 1924, when she was 40, I think she came back or stayed in New York throughout that period. She decided that she needed to move to Cairo in Egypt to study music and history and culture.
Wow.
So she moved to Egypt. She became fully Egyptian, immersed herself in the culture, met her husband, Charles Dalton. They married in 1932.
She met him in Egypt? Interesting.
He was American. A rich lawyer, politician type, I think. I didn't really do much. I haven't done much research on the husbands because it's Women's History Month. But so her and Dalton actually wrote a grand opera together called The Diadem of Stars or Diadem of Stars. They had performers, costumes, fully funded, and then World War II broke out and the funding was taken back and they were never able to open it.
Oh, wow.
However, so it's unclear to me whether or not she died in Egypt or the States.
Okay.
I think she came back to New Paltz because I know that she came back to see her aunt, Gertrude.
Okay. Who was living
on
Huguenot Street.
In the fort. So yeah, but she gave performances. We have record and brochures of her performances at Vassar, at Mohonk, and the Collingwood Opera House of Poughkeepsie, which is now the Bardavon, sorry.
Oh, cool.
So her aunt Gertrude, she stayed. Oh yeah, actually, now that I'm looking at my notes, she returned to New Paltz to live in her later years. So she passed away somewhere in Ulster County. So yeah, she's wild, but there will be
fascinating.
There will be in-depth information on her and how she feels about pharaohs and Egyptian culture on the Object of the Week blog, which keep up with to read.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, that's actually a perfect segue, because I was going to ask you about the next person by saying that this artist was recently featured on the Object of the Week blog. And the object was a painting by an artist named Rachel Maria Hasbrook.
Right.
So can you tell us about her?
Sure. So we've had these 3 paintings sitting in our offices for a while. We knew the artist and birth and death dates, but we never actually knew about her. So Emily Finan, again, she went out to do an Object of the Week on this painting. That was originally by a Hugo Sampson in 1884 was the original creator of this piece. So this was a copy. The 3 that we have are copies of original French art.
Oh, okay.
So we were wondering, like, this woman, this Hasbrook, who we know lived in New Paltz, how did she, what made her, want to paint French art?
Right.
So the power of genealogy and library research, she Googled this woman for 2 weeks and could not find anything. So finally she was like, I don't think I can do this. So I said, you know what, let's go talk to Carrie and see if there's anything there. So she opened a Hasbrook genealogy and found so much information.
Oh, great.
So she was involved in the art world on the communal level, so she taught, but she spent time in France. And I guess while she was in France as a young girl, she saw the realism art movement and wanted to copy it and bring it back to Huguenot Street.
Okay,
Or
that
bring it
makes
back
sense
to New
now.
Paltz in the States.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because there were totally she was born, when was she born? I forget. In 1837. And she lived until 1911. She was never married, which is my favorite part.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
A lot of the women that I've been focusing on or trying to find are women that were never officially married or, talk about marriage in a different way. But while she was alive, it was a whole Impressionism was going on, and it was really interesting and an interesting exploration of why she wasn't doing things like that. She was going back to realism. But she actually had a studio above a bank. In the genealogy, it just said Main Street.
Okay.
But we know she lived in Ulster County, so I don't know if it's Main Street here or Main Street in Marlborough.
Okay.
Either way, she's still...
Either way, yeah, very close to home. Yeah.
But yeah, we have 3 paintings of hers. None are currently on display, but maybe one day they will be.
Yeah.
And they're all copies of French original artwork. It's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. That was definitely interesting. And the painting was beautiful.
Yeah, the painting that's on there features women, a mother, and a little girl, and Emily goes into talking about the little girl. Yeah.
Great. So if you'd like to see that entry about Rachel Maria Hasbrook and her work on the Object of the Week blog, you can find that at hhscollections.wordpress.com. Right now we're going to take a quick break. This is WFNP The Edge. Hi and welcome back. You're listening to Historic Huguenot Street's weekly program on WFNP The Edge. I'm Kaitlin Gallucci, and I'm speaking to Collections Manager Ashley Trainor. Now, just before the break, we were discussing a local artist, Rachel Maria Hasbrook, but we also have a number of paintings in our collections by another renowned painter, Julia Dillon from Kingston. So, Ashley, can you tell us a bit about her?
Sure. So, Julia McEntee Dillon, she was born in Kingston in 1834. Like other artists at the time, she studied during her teenage years at the Clinton Liberal Institute, where she met art teachers Mary Conkey and Sarah Hutchins, who encouraged her drawing talents and kind of made her who she was. So after studying there, she returned to Kingston and married John Dillon in 1866. In 1872, when she was 38, she was able to study painting in Paris, which is also a very common theme. And she spent time working along her cousin Jervis McEntee, who I'm not really sure that anybody would know who Jervis McEntee is other than like people who are Hudson Valley, you know.
Sure, because I don't.
Enthusiasts, but it's really cool. So after only 7 years of being married, her husband died in 1873, and she came back and stayed in the Rondout area. And later in life, after her husband passed away, she really kind of found her own and started painting these floral themes. So we have two florals of hers in the Deo house right now on Huguenot Street on display, and they're staying there, so you'll be able to see them when we open.
Nice.
In 1876, she was featured in a series of exhibitions at the National Academy of Design in New York City. And when that happened, she moved to the city and was part of kind of a female painter group and taught. And then later, in 1885, she returned to Paris and she studied more in Paris. She had a very interesting life, yeah. And
it's funny, so both Julia and also the artist we were talking about before, Rachel, both studied in France.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, and like actually Ruth Linda Deo, she was also exhibited at the Columbia exhibition in Chicago.
Oh, cool.
I guess that's different mediums, painting, music.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So then in 1893, after going to Paris and living in the city, she came back to Kingston, taught locally. She became kind of a philanthropist and became involved in community projects. So she helped to establish the Kingston City Hospital, the Kingston Library, and the Ulster Garden Club. She also was kind of the definition of colonial revival, if anybody has taken a tour with us. She was a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution and the State Aid Charity Association. She was involved in a literary group, the Monday Club, and published a book in 1915 called The Old Gardens of Kingston. And she really loved her hometown. She came back. She went many places, came back.
That's sweet that she, because I'm obviously familiar with her work, and it's typically floral. And then you mentioned she's like in the garden club. She wrote a book about gardens. Yeah. So it's like something she was really passionate about.
And Sandy Levy, who I talk about all the time, he just keeps coming in contact with these paintings, and I think he just got a pastel, and he's never seen a pastel by her before.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, to his shop. So yeah, she's great. She's definitely local. And it's cool that these women have been exhibited in these big important places.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So she, since her death in 1919, which is fairly more recent than a lot of people.
Right, less than 100 years.
Yeah. Oh, wow, yeah. She has been exhibited at the Newark Museum, the Ulster County Historical Society, the Friends of Historic Kingston, the Ulster Garden Club, and Historic Huguenot Street. So yeah, she's as local as you can get, really, for Ulster County, and that we have her work is amazing.
Definitely. That's really nice. It's also nice just to hear, about all of these women who were involved in the arts, that their works are still being looked at and talked about today, which is nice. And
that they kind of flourished past husbandry and having
and
kept going.
Yeah, it's none of these women's stories are like
had kids and stopped going.
Yeah, or like my husband owned an art gallery, so I got an exhibit there. Yep. They are really, their successes seem to be based on their merits, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ashley, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Kaitlin.
I'm sure we'll have you back again soon, probably to talk about more women.
Yeah, I have 2 women that are going to be exhibited, so I can come back and talk about them.
Awesome. So before we go, I just want to mention we're also launching a women's history tour this month on Saturday, March 25th. Our public programming department has been working on that with SUNY New Paltz intern Ali Surgery, who was a guest on the show last semester. That tour will be offered once a month, again, beginning March 25th. We'll talk a bit more about that later in the month, but you can already register for the March 25th tour on our website at huguenotstreet.org. We're wrapping up now, but listeners can tune in every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. for the rest of the semester at WFNP.org or 88.7 FM to hear more from Historic Huguenot Street. Visit huguenotstreet.org for information on all of our upcoming events. You can also follow us on social media and sign up for our email list to stay informed on what's happening on the street. And if you ever want to catch up on any of our past radio shows, they are all available on our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.